Using professionals were evident in our findings when paraprofessionals and parents used the scale. This is an extremely important finding because it suggests then that when paraprofessionals and parents are using the scale, that they're interpreting items and using them in the same way as the professionals are when you get the exact same factor analysis results. I think that service learning really does set the stage for students to get exposure to a variety of people who live in a variety of circumstances with a multitude of problems that they're grappling with. To some extent, all of us here come from some position of privilege. And I think that if somebody isn't out there working in the front lines, if you will, and really exposed to the agencies who on a day in and day out basis are doing the best they can to basically help these people survive, homeless people survive. I think that really is what students tell me, is that it's a major eye-opening experience for them, and that some of them will get involved in this a little later in their stay here, junior, senior year, and often they will express regret that they didn't get involved early on because they feel that their courses would have meant so much more to them if they would have been involved in these projects early on and really see the real life manifestations of these concepts that they're learning in the courses. And so this is what I think is really important about the Common Academic Program, especially from my perspective with the use of service learning, is that it does get students, it thrusts them out there into the community early on, and I think really sets the stage for them to get the most, to become, for us to educate the whole person, and for them to really realize their inherent potentialities and become what they were meant to become. Growing up in Western Pennsylvania, we really didn't have very much. My mother was raised in West Virginia in poverty, without running water, without electricity. My father grew up in Pennsylvania, had to quit school after the 8th grade and went to the military to send money home. I was the youngest of 4. I am the first one in my family, either side of my family, to go to college, and that even though the financial support wasn't there, the moral support was always there, and that really meant the world to me. Sometimes my students tease me a little bit because they come in and they look at my filing cabinet and they say, gee, if people didn't know better, they'd think you have 6 or 7 kids, but I just have a lot of pictures of them. And even when I get more updated pictures, I have trouble taking the older ones down. Tracy and I have been married for 25 years, and I took a year off after my undergraduate work, and I worked as a crisis worker. And so we had some pretty interesting dates because sometimes I would be called out to have to go to the emergency room to make decisions about whether somebody should be involuntarily or committed or whatever. You're right in the middle of a date, you know. So the fact that she stuck with me through that probably speaks volumes. And so from this you could actually go out and with proper supervision use this instrument. Susan, as you know, is a doctoral candidate right now at Miami University. We ended up buying Irma Baumbeck's original house in Centerville, which was a very, very interesting connection with her being, you know, such a big figure from UD. Now, I always joke around with my friends that please tell people that this is the house she lived in before she became rich and famous, or otherwise someone might have a grandiose idea of of the community that I live in. Lovaas was interested in comparing what he called an intensive treatment group. There were 19 people in.
First of all, I like that it's not just like a lecture.
Like showing more sensitive changes, I think, would be better for the outcome.
He likes to interact with his students.
What would be the purposes of this type of convergent validity?
And I really like his approach to teaching because he takes an integrative approach and he combines teaching with research and service.
I started using service learning in the 90s, and this was for that project that I received the Service Learning Awards. Students need to be able to apply theory and research to real-life examples. My current emphasis is on service learning projects focused on homelessness. And these students will work in homeless shelters such as Daybreak. I think that service learning really fits perfectly with our community-oriented mission because it really links research and theory to leadership in the community. And I think that in addition to fostering foundation knowledge and professional knowledge in students, we really need to facilitate the development of what Altman called socially responsive knowledge. That students need to be able to apply theory and research to real life examples. And the best way for this to happen is for them to be out there in the community working in these agencies.
My experiences here have definitely helped shape my interests and my goals for my career. One thing, I've done a lot of work with clients who have been victims of family or intimate partner violence.
So we're going to talk about self-awareness. I mainly do work with the token economy, and so it's basically how clients here earn their rental subsidy, and it's really neat because I get to meet them the second they move in, and I really get to see how they develop here and take a hand in trying to help them succeed here.
My graduate students and I have done a fair amount of that research, and we published it, and it really does demonstrate you have two groups of students, and one group is participating in the service learning. The other students are in the same course but not doing the service learning. On exams, objective exams, they will start out at about the same place. But throughout the course of semester, the service learning students will become increasingly superior in their exam performance. And the reasons seem to be that they see something in the agency where they're working, and it makes them more interested in going back and reading in the textbook. So real briefly, a lot of the early research focused on the benefits of service learning for students, which are academically oriented, but also variables such as community service self-efficacy, a person feeling as though they're more competent to go out and make a meaningful contribution to the community, and social responsibility. More recently in the field, and a recent thrust in our research is to also demonstrate the community benefits of those projects. So most of my projects at this point have kind of a dual purpose in terms of assessment. We're looking for positive changes in students, but at the same time trying to document that these projects actually improve the agency's functioning in some way. At first, someone in charge of an agency just isn't sure about this, but then once they see our students for a semester, they just keep asking for them to come back. And of course, what's really fascinating is that some of the students will continue to do service even though the quote-unquote course requirement is over.
Well, this is the only class where I was approached with this opportunity. It was surprising in that no other professor had asked me to be engaged in service learning. And it stuck to me so much. 2 years later, I'm still involved with Dr. Reeb and service learning and homelessness, and I go all the time down to St. Vincent's and still help out.
So I developed this community service self-efficacy scale. It's based theoretically on Bandura's self-efficacy theory. And so if you can foster mastery experiences in students as they're out there working in the community, you will be improving their sense of self-efficacy. The psychoecological systems model is an integrative approach that I developed in conjunction with one of my graduate students a few years ago, Susan Folger. This model integrates three theoretical developments: the biopsychosocial model. It also incorporates the Bandura's principle of reciprocal determinism. Finally, this model, which my students fondly refer to as PESM as an acronym, incorporates the ecological system model developed originally by Yuri Bronfenbrenner, which looks at all of the layers of systems surrounding the person. And this model, PESM, is a driving force behind the course that I've developed for the Common Academic Program in the fall, which we've called Engaged Scholarship for Homelessness. And I encourage them to work with me at a level where they can earn co-authorship on papers and presentations at professional conferences. And that type of research mentoring, I think, is a very important aspect of teaching beyond the classroom. I've worked toward a model where I really treat them more like junior colleagues than I do students. And I really honestly feel like that brings out the best in people. That people really seem to develop the perspective of, wow, this guy is really expecting a lot from me, but he's showing me this respect by offering me an opportunity to get on a publication. And they will work very, very hard and learn a lot. And I really, I had a few just exceptional students in the past that working with them was more like working with a colleague than it was a student. And that made me start thinking in a different way. Maybe this is how we should be working with our students in an apprenticeship model. Maybe they should be thought of as junior colleagues as opposed to just students. And I think that really brings out the best in them.